the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Encora's Dojo Live, this June 6th, 2025. Here we have candid conversations with industry leaders who are tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I'm your host, Kim Lantis, and I'm excited because today is episode number 3, the big 3 of our series, Empowering the Ecosystem, Insights from Hospitality's Tech Enablers. Our topic of conversation, closing the gap from what vendors sell to what hotels actually use. We're going to be exploring user adoption and why it's not the finish line, and what both vendors and hoteliers need to stop doing and start doing to drive real business value. Joining me is Melissa Jurkoic. Did I get that right, Melissa? Jurkoic?
Nailed it.
Yes, all right.
Well done, Kim.
Thank you. Chief Operations Officer at Benson Consulting. Melissa, you bring a lot of experience across so many things, from product, operations, enablement, customer advocacy. I'm really excited to unpack why tech activation is often stalled and what we can do to close that gap. But before we do, let's start with your story. Again, I know you've worked across a lot of areas. Why is this topic, especially tech adoption versus actual activation, so important to you?
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here, by the way. Thank you so much. I'm super excited. And well done on my name. Like, it's very impressive. First try even. So that's great. Yeah. As you mentioned, I've spanned a lot of different domains in tech. I've been a technology professional my whole career, from engineering, product management, solution architecture, into leading and building product and tech teams. So it's given me a holistic view of technology adoption, right? From all the different levels, from being a builder to being someone that was describing what should be built on behalf of a customer, to guiding teams, to working directly with customers at the enterprise level and traveling the world, sitting with people talking about their business strategy and how does that map or not to a company's product roadmap, right? And so all of that has given me this like holistic view of how people approach technology adoption, how they're either failing or succeeding, and a mixture of those things. And so what really draws me to solving this important problem that we're going to talk about today is that the intersection of technology and the real world execution is really like, how do tools shape business outcomes, right? It's not just about implementation metrics and like getting, like you say, like getting to the finish line, being like, check the box, we've got it on, we went live. It's really like, what did we do? Like, what is true activation, right? And so for me, adoption, like as you said in the title, right, is surface level. It's about like, I'm installing, and I'm probably got trained from the vendor on the tool, check the boxes, I've been handed over to support, right? I'm in steady state now, I went go live. Activation is very different. So in my framing and technology, activation is really where we create a measurable impact, right? That's where you're solving actual business problems. The rubber's meeting the road and you're seeing the impact of putting the technology in place, not just checking the box that you went live. So that's what I get really passionate about, partially because I think that technology is so powerful and so accessible to everyone, but also because I've seen it fail, and that from within the vendor space. My career has been working on the product side from within a vendor. So now stepping out of that, and this year, it's how can I have a measurable impact myself to kind of shift what I've seen over the course of my career over the last 25 years.
Absolutely. And I think the absolute best of luck with that. The thing that comes to top of mind for me right now is, this is so silly. I am a host of a show all about technology, and I'm such a late adopter myself. I only got an Alexa like less than a year ago.
Really?
Is this? Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And I laugh at myself because I'm like, whoo, I now have one. I've adopted. But I realized that in terms of, the actual activation, I still only use her for like, what time is it? What's the weather today? Set a timer for 10 minutes, add milk to the shopping list. And that's about the extent. So I think when you're talking about adoption and activation, I get it, because I think the tools and the things that we obtain can go so much deeper and so much farther than maybe we're taking them. But let's first talk about the implementation piece. You know, that elephant in the room, the growing gap between implementation and the real value.
Yeah.
What do you think is driving this gap, and is AI helping or hindering the
Yeah.
divide?
Yeah, get to that, right? Because I think that's a topical, that's a whole nother episode for us to do later.
Just the second elephant in the other side of the
Yeah,
room.
exactly. But yeah, there is a gap, right? Let's just call it out. There's definitely a gap between the implementation and the impact, right? Like, why is there this like divide, and what's driving it? I think, really, and again, guilty as charged, right? I've been in the vendor space my entire career, right? So this isn't like, this is what you're all doing wrong. This is just the reality. It's just the truth, right? So vendors focus on onboarding, right? They focus on selling their product, enhancing their product, getting their product to market, earning market share, like all the competing with other people in their space, right? Like that's just the nature of the beast. Again, it's not wrong. It's just the way that it works. And I think the challenge there is actually, I will quote Jacob Messina at Stay in Touch. I saw him at ILC, and I will quote him because it was an amazing quote. He was on a panel, and one of the things he said that has stuck with me ever since I saw it, he said, we as vendors and product companies, we're not selling tech. We're selling change. And that was huge, right? Coming from someone on the product side. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And I think that saying that is one thing,
Which
like
can you
walking the
follow?
yeah, yeah, walking the walk, right? Like, now, okay, we've said it now, we've put it out there, but what are we actually doing about it, right? And I think that's the key. It's like, if you're focused on the onboarding part, like getting to go live, yeah, that's not transformation, because transformation happens when the buyers see the technology as shifting something for them, right? That's like the true ROI. So there's the vendor side. And then buyers see technology as a fix-all instead of a shift in behavior or process. So you see it on both sides, right? And I think, again, I'm not calling anyone out, but I'm saying, like, this is the reality. And this is what I've seen time and time again. What you said about Alexa is such a perfect classic case study, right? It is, you just got something, a piece of technology, and you're using only 10% of it. You know, and in your case, good on you, because not everyone even knows or appreciates or acknowledges they're only using 10%. But the sheer fact is that's the majority of cases in all technologies and across industry, quite frankly. So it's no different in the hospitality industry. Most of all the hard work that vendors are doing to progress their products, to build out the roadmap, to get everything out there, and they have these amazing features,
Yeah.
10% of it's being utilized.
And it's not a $100 Echo Dot.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, which is a very good point too, right? So the ROI impact is even greater, because now you've invested all of this. So, what ends up happening, whoever made that investment choice decides, well, wait, I'm paying all of this, but I'm only
Mhm.
getting this for value. And so you get churn, right? They end up saying, we don't need it anymore. We're not getting value. You know what they do? They realize they still have the problems. So then they go find another solution, and they start the process all over, and they use 10% of that solution. And so the
Yeah,
story goes.
it's an expensive dance and back and forth for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And frustrating one, right? Not just expensive, so many things. So you've already touched on this a little bit about who's at fault here, and it's neither and both at the same time in terms of that. But you know, we already touched a little on the common missteps, I think, of both the vendor and the buyer side, and what should not be happening. Is there anything that you'd like to reinforce there? Or
Yeah.
would we kind of like to get a bit more constructive
Yeah.
in
I think,
terms
well,
of,
I don't want to ignore you on the AI side. I sort of said I pushed it off, but I do actually want to say something about that. I think it's important, right? We can't, honestly, we're not talking enough about it. Let's just be honest right here. I will come out and say that, like, some people might feel like it's white noise, we're talking too much about it. We're not talking enough, because the topic is changing so rapidly, more fast than anything that we've seen in this space. So what I would say is, AI, again, like everything, there's two sides to the coin. It's both a help and a challenge, right? Like, it can accelerate activation, but it also can expose a weak foundation where your workflows aren't already optimized, where you don't have processes defined. So you're rushing to adopt something, but you don't have the underpinning there to be able to adopt it in a responsible, impactful way. So that's why I say, like, it can be both a help because it will get
Mm.
you places a lot faster, and the technology itself is advancing at a speed that we've never seen anything
So
advance
it's
at.
like putting the really expensive gasoline in a car that's 50 years old.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, exactly. It's like,
Like, really?
nice try. It's not going to make your car run better, actually. It's so true. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. And then you're
Right.
right. We already talked about sort of the missteps on both sides, and I think truly it's like from the vendor side. I talked about like looking at onboarding, right, and like getting to go live, and not the transformation piece. And I would say like measuring success by that implementation completion and not long-term usage and impact. Another key thing I want to point out there is like what we do, because we're so excited about our tech and our products. And we as technologists, we love shiny new things and we love to talk about them. And we're like, aren't you so excited about it? Because I'm just like totally geeking out about this. You've got to be so excited about it. So what do? We overload clients with features because we want you to use all the features. We want to talk about all the features when we show you our product because we're super proud of them. But that's exactly what I said. It's an overload. It's too much. And I might only use 10% of that because that's all that's applicable to me. So I can't even see what the use case is for the other stuff that you showed me that probably is amazing, but you haven't mapped it to me. So, I think looking at that and saying map onboarding to specific business challenges, right? Like look at, okay, first 90 days, this customer is going to go live on your product. How are they going to be able to measure the ROI? Because that's, a vendor's problem, right? Like they need to always be talking about the ROI that someone's getting from their product. So you've got to build in ways in the onboarding so that it's very easy for a client to see that. Like, and so that's like, do that. Don't treat onboarding as like a feature showcase, like a parade. It's not, right? You're very excited about it and we love that. We love you. We love your product, but you have to tie every step to a use case that matters to the buyer. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if it doesn't matter to them, who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what does this a good onboarding look like in your experience? To me, I'm an analogies person, if you haven't picked up on that already. I'm a mom also. I have a 7-year-old in the first grade who's intensively learning how to read. And so
Yeah.
top of mind for me is like, where do we start with? The vowels, usually A, E, I,
Yeah.
O, U, and those sounds, because they're going to be present in pretty much every word we build. And then you phase off into the more common letters like R, S, T, or, and then as we build up that wheelhouse. So I imagine that this is what maybe a good onboarding looks like with new technology. Like start with the basics, what you really, really need, and then let's build onto it. But what does that also process look like, and hand holding? Like, what would you say the do in the onboarding, the
Mhm.
don't onboarding is, and the do?
Yeah, totally. So again, like back to the use cases, right? So I would say basics, sure, but here's the thing, like the basics sometimes isn't good enough. And that's another thing I say is like vendors often train the basics of their product to someone during the onboarding process, but they're not really making it relatable to the use cases that team and honestly like what they're going to do day to day. And so if you teach somebody something and it's not what they're going to do tomorrow, they're going to forget it, right? It's not valuable. So it's got to be like actionable steps. So I would say like a ideal onboarding scenario, real life examples, like really understanding who are you training, what is their role, having role specific training. Like do not just get everybody from the client in the room and say, okay, today is training day or training week or whatever, right? Because and this is true in the hospitality space for sure, right? Like everybody has different roles, and depending on your solution, if it's a large platform with a lot of different functionality, you probably have targeted use cases that are going to be department specific or team specific or even person specific, depending on the size of the customer. So your training should match that. Like your training should be role specific. You should be talking to the people in how they do their job, right? And think of the jobs to be done framework, right? I'm a big fan of that. Used it a lot in my career building product. So it's no different than when you're telling someone how to use the product. You have to understand what their job is and what their role is so that you're catering what you're telling them to match what they do every day. And then they're going to elicit better questions, right? And then you're going to be able to use those questions to drive it to be more valuable for them. So definitely, again, like can't say enough, like map to their use cases, both when you're selling to them and when you're onboarding them, like understand the roles that are going to be involved in using the product. And don't assume that login equals success, right? Like, and that goes back to like adoption is not the finish line. Don't assume that. So don't do that, but enable something to measure proficiency. And this is a big thing, like super passionate about this is like, what does it mean to be proficient? Well, guess what? You as the vendor get to drive that because it's your product. What do you consider proficiency in your product? That is different than vendor two over here with their product, right? So I think like understanding that when you're talking about your UVP as a vendor, okay, how do I measure proficiency? What will I feel like is a great level of user proficiency? How am I going to measure that? And how am I going to continue to measure that? Because again, what does that do? It helps show ROI, which is what you want because you want your customers to
Absolutely.
stay.
Yeah. And with the current customers, and I think it's also makes a stellar use case for obtaining more.
Exactly. Right. Right. It's
Yeah.
like, look at what they're doing and look at the level of proficiency. And what does that level of proficiency map to? Guess what? Use cases and business outcomes. Because if I'm this level of proficiency, I'm probably not just doing it for fun. Right. I'm not playing Candy Crush on my phone. I'm actually doing my job. Right. Like I'm really in there and I'm doing my job and I'm loving this product. And one of my favorite questions as a product company that you should always ask your customers is like, what would happen if your leader that made this decision to buy this product shut it off tomorrow?
Yeah.
You want them to be
Absolutely.
like, no, don't do it, right? Because that means that they really need it, right? And it's like something they enjoy doing it. So for sure, for sure.
Absolutely. And Ahmad agrees. Ahmad Aludin. I'm sorry if I didn't get your name correct, Ahmad, but he says exactly that. Clarity on role objectives should be
Yes,
set out clearly, right? Monitored by KPIs. Training should be aligned to business
yes,
strategy. He
yes.
clearly agrees. Anything that you'd like to add in terms of the vendor side of the do's and don'ts, or shall we transition to the other side of this coin, the buyer side?
Yeah, I feel like I've said a lot about the vendor side, and honestly, that's like from my experience, right? My lived experience being on the
Yeah.
inside, where I see, the mistakes that we have made, and for good reason, right? Like I totally understand it. So yeah, I think on the hotel operator side, the people that are actually like the buyer of the technology, I think again, shift the mindset. Technology isn't the solution, right? I think there's a couple of things that happen when the buyer is evaluating a technology solution is like thinking about it, it's going to just fix the problem. And that's just not true, right? I'm a technologist. I love tech. I love it. But it is not, it's not even always the solution. In fact, sometimes I would say it's not. The solution is actually like a process or a people change, not necessarily tech. It's not the end all be all or the silver bullet. So like shifting from it's being a solution to being an enabler, right? It is all about enabling you to make better decisions, to basically achieve the business outcomes that you haven't been able to achieve. So understanding what those are, please do that before you try to map technology to that. Like not understanding what that is and then trying to find a solution for it is like an answer without a question, right? And so that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So like that's the answer, but what was the question? So like be super clear about like what are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve and shift your mindset from it being like the solution to being an enabler to help you solve. So that's one key thing. Make sure that you similar to what we just talked about on the vendor side, make sure you have success metrics. What does success look like for you? Don't expect the vendor to give that to you because it's again, just like I said, proficiency in a product is unique to the vendor. You being successful onboarding that product in your business is unique to you, right? Like there, oh, sure, we have generic success metrics and we can map those out, but you have specific problems and your problems, although maybe generalized to be the same as this hospitality operations team over here, you've got to know specifically where your challenges are because you may be operating with half as many staff as them, or you may not even have the right roles, or you might have a more complex ecosystem on the tech stack, and you might not. So there's so many nuances. Like you've got to be super clear what that is. And you should also invest in ongoing proficiency training, not just the initial training. This is another thing I see a lot on the buyer side, right? So again, guilty as charged from being inside the product organizations and building all of the self-service training and online academy, right? And they're super important. And I don't dismiss those at all. What I see though in reality is just because you build it doesn't mean they come, right? Like you have all those resources and tools for them, but let's face it, do they have the time to go and like use the resources and tools? And back to the other, are the resources and tools so generic they don't feel like they apply to their specific use cases, so they're not as valuable as you think they are on the product side? So then like, how do we get them staying ongoing proficient in the product? Because you can write your monthly newsletters and you can send those out, and you can have your release notes that are accessible from within your product. But tell me, how many of those end users that actually use the product to do their jobs, how many are actually reading them? I haven't done a survey of it, but my guess is very few. Very few are actually reading them. So I think the buyers have to do better. Like they have to build it in. If they're going to make this investment in this technology, it's not like just you buy it, it fixes all the problems and you never have to look back. Like there's an ongoing investment. So build it in. Like, what does it look like?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I'm hearing is that we need to be conversing, right? There needs to be
Yes.
this human to human exchange
Yes. Yes.
while we're using technology as that enabler. So, with this change management in a world of constant digital transformation, because again, as you mentioned, features, look at these new shiny
Yeah.
things, and AI, wow, look what it can do
Hmm.
now. So, it's constant. And at the same time, I think teams are shrinking on
Yeah,
both the technology side as well as the hotel staff side. So, how
absolutely.
can companies roll out change in a way that actually sticks? I believe that you do have some ideas with your
I do.
AIM framework.
I
Like,
do.
what have you seen that's working?
Yeah, so we're super excited about this, and we've been applying it with clients of ours, and we're seeing a big shift again. Like it really starts with mindset. And one of the things I'll mention too before I get into the details of the framework is a lot of what you'll hear. I don't know if others that are listening today have heard this, but even talking about AI is as like automated and tech and so like elusive to some people. One of the key, I love this term, is like what's really important and we all have to keep in mind is even with AI you need a human in the loop. So that's like the actual phrase that people are using, and I love it because you can't dismiss the value of having that human in the loop. And so it's so akin to how we look at managing change, right? And back to Jacob Messina's quote of like, you're selling change, is like we need a human in the loop, right? Like you can't just use instrumentation in your product to understand adoption and be off to the races on the vendor side. You can't, on the buyer side, expect the vendor to do all the work and make it work for you. And when it doesn't, retreat and go find a different vendor because it clearly, must have been the product, right? So there's this phases that are really important. And so that's what AIM is all about. So it's align. So like make sure, again, I cannot stress this enough. And it's similar to what we were talking about, even like how can a vendor change their onboarding process? Tie the change to strategic priorities. So it's not seen internally as what technology often is, especially in the hospitality industry, as like extra work, right? Like you've got to tie it to something that is a value that benefits everybody in the organization. Make sure they understand why you're doing this and make sure that it impacts them in a positive way, right? Because it is work. It is work. And so without all of those value points, it's just extra work, which then you get resistance, right? And what is resistance to change? It's an obstacle. People throw up
Mhm.
landmines and walls, and then you don't end up either adopting it at all or adopting it efficiently. And then you have like pockets of people using it, and then everyone else doing what they did before. So that's not successful.
It's not. And I imagine that alignment is to all obviously that they're understanding the business end of things, the results, what this means. But there's got to be the people alignment too, because they're
Hmm.
only so far am I motivated by, ooh, we're gonna book so many more rooms or do some, because it's like the end all. I'm probably, your employees probably aren't stakeholders in that sense.
Yeah,
So
totally.
should the alignment come first of like, you're going to be able to fill in the blank, right? What does this mean for you as a person? Less
Yeah,
stress, less,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. So it's a great segue, Kim, because it's what the I is. The I is about inspire. So like first is align, like let's get on board and like understand, hey, why are we doing this leadership team? Why are we making this? What's the outcomes we're trying to reach? Like let's all agree, not just half-heartedly adopt this thing. And then the I is about inspiring, which is exactly what you're saying. It's make the case for the change compelling to everyone, not just the people that are signing the check, like everyone. Help teams see the real value, not just the mechanics of it. So what are you doing? How are you going to make their life better tomorrow because we did this versus today? So what does that mean? Again, human in the loop, spending some time with them and understanding the pains that they have today. And, like really spending time with people that you probably perceive are going to be the noisiest, right? Because those are the people we sort of like maybe try to build change champions in a place where we know we can, because we're humans and we try not to take the path of the hardest path. We take the path of least resistance. But we need to, in this case, I would say, if you really want to truly inspire, you're going to have to take the path with honestly the most resistance. You're going to have to go to those people first, because they're the people that are going to throw up the landmines and the obstacles. So like get them on board, really listen, because those people are actually going to share things that you should make sure that whatever your decision is, like where you're moving forward and who you're choosing to partner with, because I do think that you should be partnering with vendors when you're making these choices. And I say that because you shouldn't be looking at it as a 3-year contract. You should be looking at it as a partnership where you do get proficient and you're getting past the 10%. So like listen to those people, because make sure that what you're picking actually matches to their pain points. Because that's the other thing, is like when you're not listening to the actual end users, then you're not going to solve their pain. So this inspiration step is going to fail. So that's the I, is inspire, right? And so the M is mobilize. So now everyone's on board, like they're excited about it. They get the why. They get the why so much that they're talking about it. Now the key is like, again, back to, you can't just install it, do the initial training and expect them just to be magical. You'll have people that are very driven and will do that, but you have to equip people with the tools, the resources, and the confidence to execute it effectively and continue to execute it. Again, this is not like a one and done thing, because last I checked, most product companies are evolving their product, which means it changes, which means that if you onboard today, my guess is most of them are having quarterly releases, at least, if not at least 2 releases a year, depending on the frequency and cadence. There's probably new features, especially right now. They probably touch AI in some way, right? Like, so how are you building that into your process? And that's what this framework is building for you. There's a mobilization piece that's like giving people support so they get to the level of proficiency, not just from the beginning, but over time as the product that they've been using evolves. There's so many times, like from the inside view on the product company, I've talked to our customers when I was in those companies, and they would share like challenges they were having. And I would be like, oh, I have great news for you. Like, this is how you solve that challenge in our platform. And they were just like shocked. They're like, how did I not already know this? And I was like, that's a great question. I share your question. Like, how did we not already tell you this? And then I'm like sad for them. I'm like, we've had this here in here for 6 months, whatever it is, right? Like we released this, the product team and I released this like 2 releases ago. How did you not know? Like, it was in the release notes. It was in our newsletter. We had a community event to evangelize it. But the people that were attending those or reading that or not reading that weren't the people that were having the challenge. So again, like mobilization has to be down to the people that are actually impacting every day.
Absolutely. It's interesting because what I'm hearing from you sounds amazing and it sounds like things should be, but on the consulting side, it also feels a little bit like a backwards engagement in the terms of working yourself out of a job because now everybody's aligned and excited and mobilized. What are you needed for? So is this also a shift in the mindset and the conversation that needs to be happening in the consultation side of things?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm a big fan of that. I've done that my whole career, right? I'm always about working myself out of a job, whether that's like promoting other people to rise up in their own career to displace me because I'll go on and do other things. I think it's for sure a mindset shift as well on the consulting side, right? It's how do you create true enablement? And by the way, enablement, not dependency. Like to be very clear, our focus is to empower our clients to sustain success long term. We love them and we hope that they bring us back into the fold when they have another initiative and they're like, oh God, this was such an amazing experience. We would love to work with you again and like go through the motion. And maybe we've done such a great job, they can do it on their own. Honestly, like I don't think that will always be the case because they have full-time jobs. Like that is like they're not change managers, right? They're not user adoption measurers. Like that's not, they need help, but we shouldn't create it where we have to be there all the time or they can't be successful. So true enablement is not about creating a dependency on you. We should really be focusing as consultants on self-sufficiency, right? Like, don't be so focused on repeat engagements for the same foundational problems. That's the key differentiator, right? It's not like, oh, I'm just going to work myself out of a job. They'll never call me back. It's, I don't want them to have to call me back for the same thing they already hired and paid me for, right? Because if that's the case, then I didn't do my job, right? That's not, I don't consider that successful. So that's when I say like work myself out of a job. That's what I mean. Like I want to empower them. I want them to feel like, wow, this is so great. And we train them to do it on their own. And so, and we do that with the framework. And that's why the framework is so great too, because people are better editors than they are authors, quite frankly, right? So if you give them a framework and tools and you give them the guardrails and the guidance, they will be able to execute. Like, and everyone is capable of doing that. But if they don't have any of that, that's where we have chaos and confusion and lack of adoption and proficiency and we don't see ROI. So I think it's like having all of that. And again, like I think consultants, and I'll speak because I am one now, like you want to enable and empower your clients. That should be your first goal. It's like, what are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? And how can I help you get there? And how can I make sure that it's not a one and done? Like you're going to have to there's still work for you. And empower you to be able to do that work on your own. And again, like call us back, but don't call us back for the same exact thing that we should have done with you successfully before.
Yes, I've got all the green flags waving right now. And it's exciting for you, I imagine, too, as a consultant, to not do wash, rinse, and repeat, right? You're exercising your muscles and your brain and growing continuously.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, Kim, like rinse and repeat I am not a rinse and repeat girl. I would say like what I've learned about myself, and not everyone is that way, but I know me in my career, it's been like, I love big, hairy problems that other people are like, no way, I don't want to touch that. I'm like, I don't know. I've always been like, yes, I will. Like, I love that. I love to dive in. I love when it's a gray area and I want to create definition because I'm a believer that complex things can be broken down into the simple problems that we can solve. And I also believe when you empower people and they are truly like vetted in what's happening, then you can do amazing things. Like when people are aligned, it's like that. I think I read a quote once, like alignment eats strategy for breakfast or something like that. Like it's like you can really like have some incredible outcomes when you get people aligned and excited about an initiative, no matter how big or small, quite frankly. So for sure, like I'm very excited to be on this other side now and like seeing, okay, how can I make an impact? And yeah, definitely not rinse and repeat. I don't want to come back and do the same thing I just did with you before, but I would love to take what I did with you and apply it over here and over here and over here and see like the impact. How can I scale the impact I can have versus like constantly helping you with the same problem over and over again.
Absolutely. Final question here for today, Melissa, zooming out a bit from your vantage point. And you have that, like you said, this amazing standpoint of being very technical and also now at the consultant side, this vantage point of one key trend or opportunity you believe will kind of be reshaping hospitality, the tech ecosystem over the next year, 2 years. Any final thoughts for both vendors and hoteliers who are going to be trying to navigate the next wave of innovation?
Yeah, this should be no surprise to anyone that it's going to be related to AI, right? And I think it's all. I mean, I've seen other people publish these thoughts too, so I'm not alone here. It's really about the agentic search that's happening now, and how that's changing how people are making choices on the buying side in terms of where they're going and what they're doing. And I saw something recently. I cannot give credit to it because I cannot remember exactly who posted or shared this article, but there was a really great article, and one of the things it said was the guest that shows up at your hotel may not have made the choice to stay at your hotel. Their agent may have done that for them. And I thought that was really powerful, like to even sit with that for a little bit and think about that. So I think it's happening. I mean, it's already happening. I think it might have been Nick Horgan actually that was interviewing some students at a university recently. And I think he had asked like some candid questions of like, will you use like bookings.com or would you use ChatGPT to plan your next vacation? And they were like, absolutely ChatGPT. Like, why wouldn't I do that? And so it's like, it's happening.
Uh-huh.
And so I think there's a lot of great things that can happen with that, but it changes the way our industry has always worked, right? So our
Yeah.
industry has historically been focused on price-driven bookings and how to offer like the best rates and things like that. I think I even saw someone with a graphic that had a tombstone that was like best rate available on the tombstone or something like that.
Oh,
So
geez.
it's
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, but agentic search,
Hmm.
it's not going to be about the best rate anymore.
Yeah,
That's that'll be a component, but it won't be solely based on that. And I think it's an opportunity to allow hotels to compete differently. Um,
for sure.
in a way that I don't think that we've been set up on systematically to allow them to do. Um, I think about, again, of course, over the course of my career, people talking about attribute-based selling. That was like a very deep, and like I know on the technology side, there was quite a few people in our ecosystem that had said like, well, that just will never happen because none of the tools will adopt to allow it in a way that hotels will feel empowered to do it, right? So that comes to me when I think of this next trend, and I'm like, I think we might be here because like if you think about that, that's sort of what we're talking about. It's like, how can you compete on experience customization rather than rates? I mean, is that a far cry from attribute-based selling? It's kind of what the
Mhm.
whole premise was about. So that's and also that I know I use an agent every single day, right? That's part of what I do. And part of the reason why I'm using it every day is because I'm also training it. So it knows me and it understands what I'm working on and it knows what Benson Consulting does. And so when I have thoughts, I talk to it and I'm constantly feeding it information because I want it to understand what it is we're doing, what our purpose is, so it can help guide me. And it's amazing.
Mhm.
It can also anticipate preferences. So it's been incredible to watch how much it's learned about me over the last couple of months based on the information I've shared. And so it could anticipate guest preferences. It could recommend things. So I think like we have to lean into that because it may even do it before you express a need. And that's why I say like I loved that article I read that said like a guest might show up at your hotel and they didn't actually pick that hotel.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't
for
them
sure.
that made the choice.
I'm not sure if it was it Alan Young in for was it
Oh,
his
it might have
article?
been Alan. It
He
might have
wrote
been
a
Alan,
recent
actually. Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh,
read it too
sorry,
and I was
Alan.
like,
Sorry,
wow.
Alan.
No, no, but it's a great article because if we read it, we both kind of stuck. I don't remember the
Yeah,
exact quote, but I remember commenting on it and thinking like,
yeah,
oh, because I felt like myself, I was like, okay, I'm on board with this, but I'm not on board for the actual booking step. I'm like, cool, do your thing, agent, up until like the final three. And
yeah,
then at that point, that's when me, Kim, this is my
yeah.
like control freak need, would have to come in and be like, okay, this one. And I was curious about what he would sees that looking like, or what the adoption would look like, or like most things, if there's going to be like everything, right? The early adopters, late
Mhm.
adopters.
Yeah, of
Looks
course.
like we actually, as we wrap up, Ahmad has loved your show for sure.
Oh,
He says also share some light if you know any framework on how should buyers align strategic objectives with their existing
mm.
vendors,
Oh,
please. So final
yeah.
question coming in from Ahmad. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmad, for your engagement. I love it. So yeah, I think honestly, I think the same framework I was just talking about, that AIM framework that I was just talking about and helping everyone understand what the A, the I, and the M stand for and why they're all important. I think that framework can absolutely be used there because I think you also need to zoom out, Ahmed, and look at your existing stack because my guess is there could be multiple, or there likely is multiple solutions that are overlapping in ways that aren't serving you. And I think that happens because we make choices at a point in time without revisiting with existing partners. Or sometimes I even had a conversation earlier today where a vendor could be asked because the customer's having such a great experience with them, they will not be getting what they need from another vendor and they will lean into the vendor they're having a great experience with and said, can you build X feature for me? Now, why is that a challenge? It's a challenge because that vendor doesn't do that. That's outside of their wheelhouse. They're not in their lane, so to speak. But they also don't want to say no. So it creates this conundrum. And now we end up with what I call like Frankenstein solutions. And then the vendor's in a sort of a bad spot because they're like, I drew outside the lines and now I don't know how to get back in. Now I'm sort of like a consulting services company. And then the buyer is kind of asking for the wrong things from the wrong people. So I would say the same framework, right? Like aim, just align, inspire, mobilize, like understand and take a zoom out and do sort of an audit of what you have and follow each of those steps and be like, do we feel like this about all the things? Because if you don't choose technology, again, if you're starting with the problem, I often say like, love the problem, just stay there a little bit longer, ask good questions, stay in the problem space a little bit longer. And you can still do that even if you already have a full tech stack and you're in full despair and it looks a mess. It's okay. Like, it's okay. I promise you, you can zoom out and adjust and like figure out, okay, what are these things? Two of these things are doing the same thing. Okay, we need to consolidate here, but it's work. It takes work and it takes time to do that. And I mean, honestly, not a shameless plug, being truly realistic, a third party can help you with that, right? I mean, I think it's the reason why you guys are promoting consulting and how someone can come in and help. It's because we all are here and motivated to help this get better. I want tech to be a solution to problems and not a hindrance or looked at as just like, ugh, it's an awful thing. We have all these things. We don't know what they do. We're not getting any value from any of them. So that would be my recommendation, is like really taking that approach of evaluation and zooming out and then applying that framework really to each solution, right? And being objective about it.
Amazing, amazing. Great advice, Melissa. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today in this whole big picture, such a clear-eyed and practical look at how we can bridge the gap between adoption and true tech activation. I loved your AIM framework. I'm so glad we got to visit that a few times. Your do this, not that examples. And honestly, your true commitment to solving real problems and your ability to empower folks. For those people who are watching and listening, if they would like to learn more about you, your work, or Benson Consulting, also your upcoming piece in the Hotel Yearbook Technology
Yes.
2025. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
Where should they go? Where should they go to do that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. That's probably like the quickest. You can reach out to me at melissa@bensonconsultinginc.com. For sure. Candace and I will be at High Tech. So for those of you that will be attending the show, I know you will be, Kim. We'll see you there on the floor. We will be at High Tech. So would love to have like more conversations about this. And again, whether you're in the vendor space or the buyer space, we're happy to have the conversation about, what does user adoption maturity look like? Help you understand the model that we've built and how we're applying that with our clients, and maybe if it could help you dive deeper into the framework. As you can tell, I could talk about this all day. So happy to talk more about it for sure. And then as you mentioned, Kim, a deeper dive into do's and don'ts for both sides of the equation, and the responsibility that we have on both the vendor and the buyer side will be published in the Hotel Yearbook ahead of High Tech.
Perfect. I believe there's going to be digital and physical copies available.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, Melissa. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, Encora, for supporting such amazing conversations. And there's the alignment here too, right? A lot of what the consulting side does for the buyers and the vendors, Encora can do that too, specifically on the builders side, help consult what's working for them, what's not, where they want to go with their new projections, and then of course making that a reality. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please do follow us at dojo.live across a variety of socials, and our website, dojo.live. That's where you can catch up on past shows and stay up to date on what's coming next. Speaking of what's next, we're actually going to be talking with Ira Volk, who I think is the editor, right,
yes,
of said magazine or yearbook. That's going to be on Tuesday, June 10th at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. And she's going to be discussing specifically high-tech strategy, how to prepare, show up, and follow through. So whether you're a vendor or a buyer, you can catch up on those actionable insights right before High Tech to make sure that you're making the most of the event. Until then, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now.